Brothers and sisters, welcome to Alchemist Theatre, where we know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It must be transformed. Previously, we would have been bringing you this show live on stage. And though this new chapter is wrought with uncertainty, if we weren't constantly transforming who we are and what Alchemist movement is, then we wouldn't be alchemists. Enjoy the show.
Sometimes there's a rental truck involved, a change of address, a party goodbye, a drive across town, state, country, oceans. Most of the time, though, we move within, following an instinct to shift to an unknown place, a lighter way of playing. Maybe something's been let go, or a new partner in crime brings a different way to break the rules of seeing. We move more than we realize. When the car breaks down, a tooth gets pulled, when laying up in the hospital for a stint, appearing in court, presenting to the class, breaking up via text. Such rituals we dread, that shove us to a crossroads, down corridors, and some will fight longer than others, before maybe we can make out a shot at something realer than this, calling from a dark deep, saying, "This had to happen, has to die, so that I could rise."
Hello, alchemists, and welcome to Alchemist Theatre's first ever exclusively digital performance. The theme this month, as chosen by our patrons at last month's discussion group, is Rebirth. And what a powerful theme, because that's exactly what's happening to Alchemist movement right now. I was listening to a Matt Kahn video the other day. His lecture was called "We Belong to the Light." And near the end, he started talking about that everything in your life will start to die. You will go through a death cycle as a rebirth is beginning to happen. And that makes so much sense because we know that death and life are connected. So I want you to think about your life right now. If there is death occurring, and that's, are you losing friendships? Are you losing relationships? Are you losing your job? Are you losing your house? Look around at all of the avenues of your life right now. And if there is a lot of death and change and transformation happening, and a lot of it feels like loss, and it's scary, and you want to cling on, you, my friend, are going through a death cycle to prepare you for a rebirth. And the more important you are to the transformation of this earth right now, that doesn't mean more important than other people, but the more important your role is to what's happening right now on earth, the more likely it is that you are going through a really rough death cycle right now, because God is preparing you for a rebirth like you can't even imagine. Now, I want to talk about this connection between death and birth. Now, this is a concept we've all heard before, right? You can't have a birth without death, and through death comes life. Cut to those memes of a flower popping up in the middle of a devastated landscape. Or cut to a metaphor about mushrooms and how mushrooms literally feed on death and decay to produce new life. Ooh, we've all heard it before. Death needs life and life needs death, but have you ever truly thought about it before? Have you ever truly sat and meditated on this connection between life and death, death and birth, death and rebirth? Take a second and think about it. What does it really mean when we say that death leads to life and that all of life requires death? Recently, a friend asked me, "Mama, tell me what birth is like." And it took me back to my birth almost a year ago. Can you believe it? Almost a year ago. I gave birth in my home to the one and only Aslan Ray that we all know and love. And the reason that I chose to have a natural birth in my home was because I was playing around with this idea that there's a lot of alchemy potential alchemy to be had inside a natural birth. Now, natural birth is not better. All birth is birth. C-sections are birth. Assisted birth is birth. Birth with epidurals, it's all birth, and all women and all people who have babies are warriors. Superhuman, if that even makes sense, because of course, birth and death is what makes us very human. But specifically, I was examining the alchemy and the inner calling I had to see what kind of alchemy I could achieve by going straight into birth with no drugs and in a home setting. And so as my friend asked me what birth was like, the only thing I can remember, besides begging for it to be over, was that, I had a 22.5-hour labor, considered traumatic because he was malpositioned. So his shoulder was stuck on my pelvis. So I had a lot of back labor and it felt very wrong. I know a lot, even the best labors can still feel very wrong. Like you're like, something's wrong, but something was definitely wrong. But our health was never at risk and I was very safe at home. And so there was never any worry that I was actually going to die. But what was happening inside of me was that I was dying, that I was splitting open. And I felt like I was dying for probably 20 of those 22 hours. And it just kept getting worse. And then at 10:38 p.m., I wanted to die. And I had to get to that point inside of me where I literally did not care anymore if I lived. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted the pain to be over. And the last thing I said to myself before I took one final squat down at the foot of my bed and pushed that baby out was, God, I don't care if I die. I'm just done. And I pushed harder than I've ever pushed. And I felt my entire being split open. And I gave myself to God and said, as long as it's over, I can die now. And I went right into my death. And the next thing you know, there was life. Brand new life right there in my arms. I didn't care anymore about anything else. And so my friend said, so in order to birth new life, you have to die. And though I didn't literally die, thank God, in my labor experience, existentially and emotionally and psychologically and spiritually, I did. I got to the point where I was so done with the pain that I said, I don't care if I die now. And I surrendered. Obviously, you see where I'm going with this metaphor. There's a rebirth happening. And the bad news, but also the good news is that it's coming no matter what you do. And for us spiritual people, that can be like a hard pill to swallow. We think we have to manifest. We think we have to pray. We think we have to set intentions and make vision boards. We don't. This shift is coming no matter what you do. And that's why I said, look around at your life right now. If there are death cycles happening, you, my friend, are preparing for a rebirth, and you cannot even fathom what's on the other side. Now, there's probably pain. If you're going through death cycles right now, you're probably experiencing emotional, psychological, and possibly physical pain. And that pain is coming from the clinging to the old, because we are afraid of death in our culture. And that fear of death is going to prevent you from having a more surrendered, peaceful experience of your own rebirth that is coming no matter what you do. It's coming no matter what. So don't freak out like, oh no, I'm clinging and I'm afraid of death. I'm going to screw up my rebirth. No, you can't screw it up. It's coming. It's just that your experience of that journey is going to be affected by how much you are clinging on. Now, your fear of death is not your fault. We have a death fear-based culture. We even cover up death. I want you to think about the concept of embalming and the way that American history since the Civil War, which is when embalming started, we took death, we put it behind closed doors. Funerals and deaths used to happen in homes. Now they're happening in hospitals or maybe hospice. And then the bodies are being taken to funeral homes where things are being done behind closed doors that we don't even know about. Then those bodies are being plumped up with embalming fluids and then they're putting makeup on. We are covering up death so that when you go to look at the face of your deceased loved one in their coffin, they don't look like they just died. They've got makeup on. They may not even look like what you last remember them looking like on their deathbed. We are so afraid of death, and we are so afraid of disintegration and decrepitness that we cover it up. We put makeup on it, we plump it up, and we try to make it look alive, even in the coffin. Do you know what that does on deep psychological, subversive, subconscious levels to you? It says that death is not okay and that we must make death look alive. And so I challenge you to start looking at literal death, the death of people that you love, the death of the body, to start looking at it in a new way. Can you find the beauty in the shriveled face of your deceased loved one? Can you find the beauty in the dehydration that occurs as someone is dying a natural death? Can you find beauty in the way that the organs shut down? Your body knows how to die. It knows how to be born, and it knows how to die. Can you find the beauty in physical, literal death without needing to cover it up? Can you see it as beautiful and not gross? Talk about alchemy. And then I want you to begin to look at the metaphorical deaths that are happening in your life. The change in relationships that maybe you didn't choose, friendship groups that change, romantic stories that end, your rent going up and you having to scramble to find a new place to live and having to say goodbye to the place that you've always known. I'm not saying that these things are good. I'm not advocating for them. But what I'm asking you to do is to see the ends of things, the deaths that occur naturally in your life. Can you see the beauty in the ending? And perhaps if we could learn to do this, our experience of life would be totally different. And now we see yet another way that death brings life. And perhaps then too, we wouldn't hold on to things past their prime. Maybe if we weren't afraid of death, we would choose to end unhealthy relationships a lot sooner. Maybe they wouldn't even get unhealthy. Maybe we would learn to trust ourselves that the energy has shifted and that we believe it's time to end or at least pause a friendship. If a friendship isn't serving you anymore, maybe it's okay to say goodbye. Maybe as we dig more into this death leads to life, we will be more likely to walk away from situations that are not serving our highest good. And we won't need to embalm them or put makeup on them to convince ourselves that they're not dead. And lastly, I want to tell you this anecdote. Recently, I had the privilege to do some traveling to the South, where I've been studying with a medicine man, where we ingest some plant medicine and we go on internal journeys. Now, some of the flight instructions that this medicine man gives before we all drink the plant medicine is he says it's very likely that you're going to throw up, you're going to vomit, and that the vomiting is good because it is the medicine's way of releasing something old that's in you. An old wound, an old belief, an old piece of pain, literally something in your body that needs to go. The vomiting is a part of the healing. But his warning is very specific. He says, whatever you do, don't touch the vomit. And at first you think, ew. And I apologize if the word vomit is getting graphic here, but you know what? Find the beauty in it, because biology is not gross. It's human and it's life. Anyway, he says, don't touch the vomit, because the vomit contains the energy of that which has died. It's old. It's gone. And the last thing you want to do is touch it and put it back inside of you. And I thought, how many of us eat our own vomit every day? We're in the shower and we're thinking about an old story. We're thinking about someone who betrayed us over a year ago and what we would say to them if we ran into them. We're on Facebook stalking our exes, trying to see what they're up to. We're creating revenge stories in our mind about what we would do to the people who have hurt us. And what we are doing is we're eating our vomit. Don't eat the vomit. It's gone. It's dead. Surrender to the new life and that empty feeling you have after you have thrown up something that is gone, something that's not serving you. And even if it's a beloved memory, it's still dead because it's in the past. So whether it's a memory that makes you sick or a memory that you love, don't eat the vomit because you are holding on to that which has died. And instead, you need to take your focus to the beauty of the death and prepare yourself for the rebirth that is coming. You know, when the reptile sheds its skin, it doesn't turn around, go pick it up and try to put that old skin back on and then complain when it doesn't fit anymore. When the reptile sheds its skin, it lets it go. It doesn't keep trying to put it back on. So let the death happen, find the beauty in it, stop trying to put your old skin back on, and whatever you do, don't eat the vomit. I want you to close your eyes and become outrageously present wherever you are right now. Feel the space that you're in. Feel and hear your breath. And allow your mind to become a totally black void where you hear, see, and know nothing. Now I want you to think about a situation in your life that is causing you immense pain. The thing that you obsess over all day long, yet simultaneously attempt to not think about all day long. That situation, whether it's from 10 years ago or from last week, I want you to think about the thing causing you the most pain right now and allow it to take over you. No resistance at all. Feel this thing and think about every detail of it with every piece of your body, mind, and soul. And I want you to think about it and think about it and think about it until this crack forms in the blackness of your mind. And keep feeling the pain as you head straight into the center of that crack. And when you get on the other side of the crack, you'll see a scroll. And on this scroll is written the drama, the story, every detail of this thing that you're thinking about. Whether it's you in a victim mode or you in a perpetrator mode and you're just beating yourself up for how horrible of a person you are, or this story about how God took away someone that you loved from you and you feel robbed. See the story written on a scroll. What does the font look like? What does the ink look like? And if you are ready to be reborn, I want you to pull out a lighter and burn the scroll from top to bottom, front to back, left to right, and watch it burn. And breathe. And as that scroll burns, you feel the shell around your skin begin to break. Your old skin is molting off of you. And as the scroll finishes burning, the shell of your former self has fallen off of you. And you're gonna walk away into the distance, leaving the ashes and the old skin behind you. God, thank you for the life and death cycle. As we continue to surrender to the waves of our journey on earth, we become closer to the great mystery. Bless this path, Lord, and help me to release all that is old so that I feel more peaceful in this journey. Amen.
Good evening, Alchemists, or good morning, or good afternoon, or just hello, hi, how are you? I love you in general, because you could be watching this at any time in the day, and I'm so thankful that you tuned in. I'm so grateful that you are watching this show about Rebirth. Like the butterfly emerging from the cocoon, I'm spreading my glittery wings to deliver a talk about rebirth. Now, my sermon this evening comes from a line I heard at one point in my life. Admittedly, I cannot remember, and I didn't know if it was true, but it sounded really good when I heard it. And that line is that every 7 years, every cell within your body regenerates. So the person you are now is not the person that you were, nor will it be the person that you are going to be, or something like that. And it sounded very lovely, because we've all done things we would rather forget or shed. Habits, patterns, behaviors, beliefs, things that we want to get rid of so that we can invite newness. We're constantly redefining ourselves. We're like Madonna. We are reinventing ourselves with every single day. But when I did a little bit of research into this phrase, I found that it was not entirely factually correct. Specifically, the 7-year part. Now, 7 is an interesting number in metaphysics. It's quite powerful. We find the number 7 really all over our world. Like if you take 2 dice, the number 7 is the most probable number that you will get when you throw both of them. The word 7 appears over 700 times in the Bible. The world was created in 7 days. There's 7 seals in the book of Revelations. 7 trumpeters blew 7 horns for 7 days outside of Jericho until the walls came crumbling down. Maybe that's what we need to do right now in our current world society. Send some trumpeters to the White House and blow some walls down. Maybe that would be good. Maybe that would solve a few things. There are 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 musical notes, 7 main chakras. There are 7 planets that are visible in the heavens. The moon has 4 distinct phases, and between each of those phases is approximately 7 days, etc., etc. You don't need me to give you 7 more examples of why 7 is important. Did you see what I did there? 7 is factually incorrect for the number of years that it takes for our cells to regenerate, because our cells are different depending on their specialization, but depending on their job. That determines their lifespan. So, for instance, we have skin cells, and they experience quite a lot of wear and tear, so they regenerate every 2 to 4 weeks. Well, what about our stomach cells that constantly encounter acid? Well, they regenerate every couple of days. White blood cells, couple days to a week. Red blood cells, couple of months. Bone cells take 10 years, and so do fat cells. Thank you, Mama God, for that one. You couldn't think in your infinite wisdom that you could have just, spliced that gene on and did something a little bit differently? So depending on the function and the role of the cell determines how long it lives and how long it takes to regenerate. The fascinating thing is that there are actually some cells that never regenerate. We have them our entire lifetime, like the neurons of the brain or the lens of our eyes. The enamel of our teeth do not, in fact, regenerate. And this is fascinating because even if every cell of our body that's able to regenerates, we're still not an entirely new person. Not completely. As I dove down the rabbit hole of this mystical, magical number of 7, I actually came across a theory on human development that ties our spiritual growth to the 7 chakras. And this belief that there are 7 7-year cycles. Each cycle is attributed to one of the major chakras of the body. And contained within that 7-year cycle, each year is attributed to a very specific chakra. If you are thoroughly confused, or if you are a visual learner like myself, here is a graph that will explain everything to you. Now, the interesting thing about this graph is that the first year, which is attributed to the root chakra is all about our need for security and safety, so it often, all of our fears come to the surface, is known as a spiritual crisis. And each cycle, up until 49, has this crisis. And the period of time between 1 to 49 is known as spiritual childhood. So the years of the crisis are 7, 14, 21, 28, which fascinatingly enough is called the Saturnarian death in astrology, 35, 42, and 49. Now, if you are anything like me, you just paused this video and broke out all your old journals and scrolled through your Facebook feed to find out what was happening during these particular ages of your life, to see if you were experiencing any sort of crises. Now, myself, I am currently in the throat chakra, the 5th chakra, and this is all about exercising our will. And in fact, the idea of making our life purpose our vocation, combining our reason for being here with the work that we do every single day, and aligning what we do with our higher self. What I found so fascinating is that the proponents of this theory adamantly say that you haven't even begun living yet. Which blew my mind, because at 32, often the messages that we receive is that you should have already figured this thing called life out by now. You should have the house and the career and the partner and the kids and the 401k and all of those things that seem so important. And what this theory says is everything up until this point was just lessons. A honing of your skills, of tools, of crafts that are going to serve you in the later portion of your life. You haven't even begun living yet. Now, if you have all of those things that I previously mentioned, that's fantastic. And there's no judgment. It's not saying that if you have those things, it's bad. It's also not saying that if you don't have those things, that that's bad. This message is for those individuals who may feel a little lost, perhaps disappointed, or a little depressed, because we all set goals for how 30 was going to be, where we were going to be, what was going to happen, how we imagined our life. And sometimes a little derailing happened. Tragedy happened, loss happened, things that we didn't anticipate, couldn't have anticipated happen. And those magnificent life plans that we created for ourselves were just thrown to the proverbial trash bin. And there is nothing wrong with that. There is nowhere that you have to be. And I found great solace and comfort in knowing that pretty much my 32 years of existence was just one gigantic training exercise. Woo! Lord, thank you, child. That just takes a little bit of the pressure off, because I'm still maturing. I'm still getting ripe. So there's no expectations. But it then led me to this question of, if I haven't been born yet, if I'm not living, quote unquote, living my life yet, the intended life that God has for me, then do I need a rebirth? I don't know. I guess that's one for the theologians. But when I began thinking about this, we often get trapped in this cycle of, I shouldn't be here, or haven't I done this before? Haven't I figured this out? And we engage in these self-deprecating exercises where we don't give ourselves mercy or grace or kindness or compassion. In fact, we're quite hard on ourselves, because if we feel like we're encountering life's lessons over again, then we have somehow failed. But what these cycles reveal to us is that you're always in one. You're always learning, you're always evolving, you're always expanding. It's never a one and done. Doesn't matter if it's the Peruvian medicine wheel or a hero's archetypal journey. Once you finish one, you're likely to just pick up and start all over again. So just for today, Maybe we don't need to focus so harshly on this new person that we're going to reinvent and this new identity that we're going to birth. Maybe we can just take a pause and enjoy where we're at. Maybe we can take the night off from all the spiritual growth that we've been experiencing as of late. And remember, if you feel like you're encountering the same lessons over and over and over again, and you feel as though it's quite harsh and quite chaotic, you can always ask the universe to provide the message in a more gentler way, in a more loving fashion, in a way that's less traumatic. Sometimes I need a slap across the face. No, actually, sometimes I need a 2x4 to the back of my head. But I've actually seen profound change within individuals that are subtle. It didn't require much for them to make the shift. And I've seen people get hit by semis and still don't get the message. We're all different. Just like the cells of our body, each lesson has a different lifespan. We can't have expectation that this lesson is going to take the same amount of time to learn as that lesson. We have to just understand that we're really on God's time, and it's going to take however long it needs to in order for us to regenerate. When I was thinking about this talk, for whatever reason, I was reminded of when I used to play World of Warcraft a lot. And when I used to play, I would go for long periods of time of gameplay, like 12, 14 hours. I would be in it. I would be super present. I would get so much done in this mythical made-up world that didn't really matter, but, was really important to me at the time. And then there would be periods of time where I took a break and didn't play for months. And what made me think of it was whenever I logged back on to play World of Warcraft, there was always an update of the system. And depending on how long of a break I took, the longer the system took to update with all the fixes and bug issues that were resolved. And I'm reminded that our journeys are often the same, that sometimes we're really in it and we're doing the work and it's intense and it's wonderful and terrible at the same time, and we grow and we expand and we learn so much, and we need those moments of reprieve where we just allow our operating system to integrate everything that has come in, all the information that we have amassed. We don't need to constantly move on to the next level or the next journey. We're allowed to pause. We're allowed to take a break. As I think about these 7-year cycles and our cellular regeneration and the notion that part of us rejuvenates and changes, but there's also a part of us that stays the same, tells me that we're in a constant balancing act between life and death, and that there's always parts of us that we carry into the newness, whatever we may be experiencing. My question is, how much do we really change? How much are we capable of changing? If our bodies still hold on to the things that we were born with until we die, then how much pressure we place upon ourselves to be completely new and different people all the time. And I think somewhere in our subconscious we know this. I think somewhere we're keenly aware of this notion. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody's made a mistake? Someone's cheated on you, someone's betrayed you, someone's hurt you, someone, has done some unloving actions, made mistakes. And you go through this process of renewal, seeing them differently, seeing yourself differently, seeing the world differently. And you do all the internal reconfiguring. But I wonder how much of the hurt you still carry over. I wonder what's the cellular regeneration rate of resentment? What's the cellular regeneration rate of pain and trauma and wounding? So what I love about real love the most is this idea that trust is given, trust isn't earned. Because if we live in a world in which trust is earned, there's never going to be the right and perfect amount where we go, okay, I can trust this person now. So what it made me do was reflect upon myself, the ways in which I'm still waiting for the ball to drop, the other shoe to drop, all these platitudes that we tell ourselves. We're waiting for the bad thing to happen again because we've carried over little resin, little bits and pieces with us. So not only do we slip sometimes into old patterns, habits, and behaviors, but we're also expecting other people to do the same. And then we're looking to be proven correct. So somebody goes through this amazing change. They're like, I'm a completely different person. I have a new lease on life. And then a week, 4 months, a year, 2 years, they make a mistake. And we go, see, they didn't really change at all. They're the same person that they were back then. So my question for you is, how much do you believe people are capable of changing? If people tell you that they changed, do you believe them? Do you trust that they have? And trust that they're probably going to make mistakes? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have fallen back into old habits and patterns, because they might just be cycling through the same lessons, maybe with some more tools, more insight, more wisdom, a better understanding of themselves and the world, a closer connection to spirit, but still human and therefore still prone to making mistakes. But we don't let other people off the hook because we really haven't let ourselves off the hook. Because sometimes when we make these grand declarations that we're these completely different people, we're just hoping that people believe us. We're just hoping that people affirm us. And we kind of say it out loud because by saying it out loud, we're hoping that it makes it true and that it's not just something that we have created within our minds, that in fact we are different people. But how much of us does in fact change? That's what I leave you with this evening. I don't necessarily have any answers, but it does good to reflect upon, yes, how different we are in a span of 10 years or 5, or even just how different we are moment to moment to moment. With new information comes new thoughts, new behaviors, new way of seeing this world. Can we hold people to the past? Are we confining them within these neat little boxes of who they used to be and don't entirely trust them when they say that they're different? Do we give people the opportunity to do differently, or is that unloving energy of judgment coming across so it invalidates their own belief within themselves? Are we expecting people to earn our trust? And how long does that cycle of trust earning last? Does it last for a couple days, or does it last for 7 years? So thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Reverend Divine. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you all so very much. God bless and amen.